All right, here we go. All right, we're continuing. We're back from lunch. We left off before lunch with starting to draft the propose. We're using the DNC manager to set up our attributes and also to tag the items so we can generate some proposed cross sections. I think we left off over here. Just a little bit about the DNC manager. If you're not sure if something's been tagged properly, that you know that needs to be tagged, one thing you can do is add that item or the whole folder, if you like, into what's called the collection plate. That's down below here. And then I can hit the display button, and I got 4 choices up here. The far left is just normal. Next one, you can see that anything that's been tagged with that pay item is highlighted. Or I can make it go away, or I can turn everything off except for only what has been tagged. So I've got all these tools just to make sure that everything's tagged. Now, in this case, we brought in the elements from the geometrics file, copied them in, and I don't believe that they used the DNC manager. All they were concerned about is just getting the right level, weight, and color. So we still need to tag them, even though they have the right attributes. It's still missing the tag. So I can do that after the fact by pressing set and set. And then I just simply click those items. So in this case, this is a paved shoulder. So it's going to run all the way around here. Let's see, this one that's shown as ag shoulder really should have been paved. So I'm going to set that. Oops. I'm not sure what happened there. Let's go back. Okay, so I'm just going to go back and click ID. Set. Not sure what happened there. Yeah, there we go. And that one. And so then, when we cut our cross sections through here, it'll pick up on each of these. And here on this, this is just a design thing. You'll notice that on the intersections, we don't run the ag shoulder around the radius. I think the reason for that, from my understanding, is just they don't want any rock getting up on the roadway. I think that's their rationale for that.
Make the road slippery.
What's that?
It makes the road slippery.
Slippery? If you have, yeah. Oh, and you're going around the curve? Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so we'll clear that out. And then let's check the pavement also. And I'm just going to add that to the collection, so it's kind of the same way with the pavement. Then I'll know for sure that I'll be able to tell what's been tagged, what is not. Same deal over here. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe the ag shoulder. I don't know that we finished that up. Clear that. Yeah, so up here, I think that's an egg, and just on the one side for whatever reason. Okay. There we go. So we've got our proposed edge of pavement, edge of paved shoulder, edge of ag shoulder, all drawn in. Now, as far as the order of things here, I'm kind of familiar with this job, and so I think we could go ahead and draft in the proposed culverts. In this case, I kind of remember that these culverts were really shallow. You know, they were actually up in the pavement or right on the pavement, and in order to rebuild this intersection, this pavement, it's really just chip and seal for the most part. There's a little bit of HMA like right there, and so with the type of work that we're doing, you know, we just it was decided to completely remove any of the existing pavement that was out there. It's really just oil and chip. So in doing that, I think the profile ended up getting adjusted a bit, which we'll design that, and you ended up kind of getting into these culverts. The other issue too was that they're in the clear zone, and we'd have to look at the BDE manual. I don't know if it is 30 inches and above or just above 30 inches, but a culvert itself and head wall can actually be a hazard. If it's 24 inches, you're okay, but it's looked at no different than if a car goes off the road. Instead of hitting any kind of obstacle of any kind of tree or whatever it may be, the end of that head wall could be a hazard. In fact, maybe we'll go ahead and just drop into Street View and just take a look at it real quick. Really great there. I guess in this particular case, as it goes across, then it was kind of kinked. So maybe at the time, apparently whoever designed it and built it initially didn't seem to think it was a hazard. Based on policy now, I think we'd probably try to avoid something like that if you can, and a better design. And you'd have really two options to try to eliminate the hazard. One would be to go with a certain type of a end section. You could look at the highway standards. You'd see that there's culverts that have a gentle slope to the front. So if a car hits it, it's not hitting a blunt end. Those are pretty expensive. You could go that route. The other option would be to just push that culvert back out of the clear zone. And then you can go with whatever size culvert you want. And I think that's what happened with this design here. Now, what is the clear zone? That's dependent upon policy. I think you're working on. I think you'll see the new construction policy is different than like rehabilitation policy.
There's a table in the BDE manual too.
Yeah, and it varies. When you're talking new construction policy too, it's not like a set 30 foot or something.
Right.
It depends on if you're in a curve or not in a curve. Right. Where rehabilitation type policy, you're generally looking 18 feet from the edge of pavement. But for this, I think we even pushed it back even further. The further you can, probably the better, if possible. So let's go ahead and throw out a proposed culvert, and we'll push it back a little bit further than what's out there right now. We won't get too carried away with talking about design. Let's see. So a couple ways we could do that. I got these tools here to kind of help me find that level. I could do that. We're going to proposed drainage, and there should be a culvert line in there somewhere.
Cover line.
Yeah. See, oh, there it is. Let me do this. There. Okay, I'm just going to use, for this purpose, I'm just going to use basic microstation commands, just place line. I think we'll minimize this. I think we'll go like just, perpendicular to the alignment of the side road. So in order to do that, I can use my snaps up here. You can see by default, see how if you double click on those snaps, it'll hold that snap. The way that the snaps work, and usually Lee's key point is the snap. That's probably the most common, or some people use these multi-snaps. But what that means is with my middle mouse button, I can snap to I can either snap to it with the middle mouse button, or I can come over here and turn on this AccuSnap. And then the way that works is as I get close to something, you'll first get that first snap symbol without the yellow. And what that's saying is that if I hit the middle button right now, it's going to snap to where that's showing me. If I get a little bit closer, it's saying that you can snap and you don't even have to hit the middle button. You can just hit the left mouse button and it's going to snap to that point. So that's a couple options on how you can snap. Well, one of the snaps is perpendicular. And so as a one-time use, I can click it. You can single click it or double click it. I'm going to single click it, and that allows me to do like a one-time snap and then see how it went back to key point. So for my one-time use, I'm going to go with that. So it's perpendicular to the center line, and then I'm going to go back like 30 feet if I can, or something like that. I'll just go parallel. And then I've got my extend line commands. Now I don't know how long that culvert's going to be yet. The cross sections are going to help me determine how long that culvert needs to be. So I'm just going to throw it out to look something like that, something close. You can draw both sides of the culvert or just a single line down the middle. I don't know that there's anything absolute on that. I usually show both sides. Where existing, it's usually just one line. I don't know that there's a right or wrong on that for sure. And then we could do the same thing over on the other side. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it just the same way, I think. And I'm make copy off, so I'm just gonna move it parallel basically. Feet. Okay. I think we're ready to go. At this point, and it might be a little early to look at drainage, but since I'm jumping on these culverts a little bit early, you'd probably want, I think on this existing were 30-inch culverts and it was just replaced. Whenever replacing culverts, probably a good idea to you're not going to have a hydraulic report done on a little 30-inch culvert, but it's probably still, a good idea for you yourself to look at drainage, to see is that culvert sized properly. I mean, many times we end up just putting backwidths out there, but it would be a good practice for sure to to take a look at that. And if you, a couple ways you can try to figure out what's happening with drainage. You know, you've got that tin file. You can see a lot from the aerial. It's really doing a little bit of research. Kind of, you're going out to the field. You're looking around. Oftentimes, you can look at the grass. See, like sometimes Illinois is so flat. You're looking out there and you're like, you can't even tell which way the water's flowing. Sometimes you look at the grass or the weeds in the ditch, and usually they'll be leaned over, you know, to one side or the other, so you can kind of tell which way water's flowing that way. You look around, zoom way out. You know, look at the aerials. Get the quad maps. Look at the contours out beyond your job. You know, out further, so you can get it like a better idea as far as what's happening with drainage. Oftentimes, just even from the image alone, you zoom out and you can start to get a pretty good idea what's happening with drainage, more so than if you're standing there. You wouldn't be able to see it, but looking at the image, you can start to see the drainage pattern. But probably most importantly, looking at those quad maps, or nowadays, like I said, you can go to that site. I think you could ask Mike Whitling. He used it the other day. I think it's a USGS site that allows you to click any point in your job, and it will give you the drainage area and show you what's happening with drainage. And it give you the opportunity to download the shapefile, and then you can reference the shapefile into CAD and include that in your project report. Okay. So now we have our plan view elements. You guys have anything to say before we move on?
How do you find it right of way?
Oh, good one. Yeah, very important. To find the right of way, you contact Andy Wetzel in Land Act, which they already did on this project, and you tell them what you're doing. And when it comes to right of way, you're going to get it one of two ways. You're going to get it from Andy getting it close. If there's a good chance you're not going to need right of way, this is when you first get started. It's not worth doing a land survey that soon. And so instead, you contact Andy. You say, hey, I'm doing some work here. Could you provide existing right-of-way for me? So he'll do his research. He'll look to see if there's any existing old CAD files. He might have to go to the courthouse to get information. He might go online. You know, a variety of ways that he can get the information. But it's still not going to be 100%, you know, because when it comes to property, it's dependent upon like where the property pins are, regardless of what any dimensions say on a plat or anything like that. You know, dimensions are, you'll see it says plus or minus because the distances aren't black and white, you know, like solid. They're more like approximate, but when it comes to right-of-way, the property pins take precedence over everything. But you're not going to do that initially. So to get started, tell him. He does the research, and then in CAD, in his own folder,
Isn't it possible in some jobs to find it in the old plans?
in old plans.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a problem with that, though.
Well,
Because it could be referenced to an old center line.
in old center line, right.
I have that problem.
You can go to old plans. I probably wouldn't draft it in myself. You could. I would always probably go to Andy Wetzel, and that's his job. His job, that's his sole job is plats and plans. And so Andy might do exactly what Stella was doing because he's going to do research at in multiple ways. He's telling you right up front. He'll usually put a note in the file. This right of way is not exact because, like Brian said, that center line might not be dead center as to when the property was developed. So that's where you start, though. And that gives you a pretty good idea if you need to buy right-of-way. If you need to buy right-of-way, then they have to do a land survey. If it's just a temporary easement, they most likely would not do a land survey. So. So Andy gets back with you. Hey, I got that right-of-way drawn for you. He has it in his folder. You're going to reference it. And nowadays, you're probably just going to leave it referenced. In the past, before annotation, we had to take his file, and this made him crazy, that we'd have to take his file and copy it into our job, and then he would go into his job and change it, but it would not be reflected in our job because you copied it in, not referenced it. But the reason why we had to do that was because he didn't know, just like Brad, what scale that you're going to be working at. And so he would put it out at some scale, and it may or may not work for you. So then you would copy it in. That way you had permissions to go in, and you could change the scale. Well, now it doesn't matter, right? You know, see the existing right-of-way? You know, it's annotated. It's like everything else. It's just a visualization. It's really just, it's drawn out of one. And so I would not copy it into your jobs now. Of course, later when you get to your Sheets file, you're going to need to remember that you have all these reference files that make up your job, and you're going to have to make sure that you get all those reference files into your Sheets. Okay, so that's existing right-of-way. Okay, the next thing that we could do, again, no exact order. You know, we could cut profiles now. We can start getting ready for cross sections. Either way, hard to say which one needs to come first. You don't need a profile for existing cross sections, but you will need it for proposed. I'd say let's go ahead and do profiles next. Okay. So here's what we're going to do with profile. First, we're going to generate the existing profile. And then, just like the alignment, the profile that you're generating is going to be stored in the GPK file. So we're going to create the profile right now. We're going to store it, but you're not going to see it. It's going to be in the GPK. And then after it's in the GPK, we're going to go into the profile design file, and we're going to visualize it just like we did the alignment. Okay? Okay, here we go. Eventually, you know what? Let me set something up here, because there's a lot that you can do in Geopak without using something called Project Manager. But you can't cut, or you can't do proposed cross sections. So we're going to need to do that eventually. So let me quickly set this up for you and show you how you set up Project Manager, because ultimately we're going to have to here. You probably noticed this little Dilbert guy in Project Manager right there. I guess, I don't know what it is. It's some guy. Okay. What Project Manager is, it's like this workflow box that has most everything that you do in Geopak, and it remembers what's in the dialog. So you're going to save these runs, and you'll see that here in a second. Couple different places you could save these files. Not really critical. This is not something that we archive off with the project. Somewhat temporary. You can either, you got really two choices. You can put it on the W drive. We have a Project Manager folder set up already. And then you can go up to Directory and say Create New Directory. And then you're going to type in your contract number. And then when you do that, we should be able to find it now. Let's see. Where's the number?
There is.
Right there.
Did you see it? Oh,
Yeah.
Where'd you see it?
Up there.
At the very top?
Yes.
Very top, yeah.
There? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Gee, right in front of me. Okay. Oh, and it may have already existed. Huh. Let's see. Oh, I probably created that when I was just running through this. Okay, so I deleted it out. Okay, so we created the directory, and so now you need to create this project manager file. So I go to projects, new. We typically just give it a, you can call it whatever you want. We usually just say design. I don't know why. And then here, remember earlier when we set the user preferences by that pull down? If you're running Project Manager, you can actually set the preferences here, and it will be associated to your project that way. So let's go ahead and do that. And it still actually remembers what I had set up earlier. So I set my COGO preferences here, just like I did there. I'm going to select my GPK, say OK, and then it creates a PRJ file, a project manager file. From there, I think I go OK. Oh, normally your name won't be there. Let me delete that. This box, I hit new. This box popped up. I'm going to go user, new. And this kind of makes the assumption that you're going to have a lot of people working on this project, and that's why it's asking you for all this, so you have your own runs and it remembers the work that you did. Like I say, our squads are pretty small now, so it might very well be just you working and only using Project Manager on this file. But you still have to set this up, though, for it to work. And then I'm going to say no for needing a password for my user. And then I select my name. I say OK, and then I get this workflow box. And actually, a lot of people actually like this. I guess I don't use it too much unless I absolutely need it. After you use Geopak enough, you can usually just go to the tools. When people are first getting started, I think they kind of like this because it's got a bit of a flow chart to it. So you can say, okay, what do I need to do next? And you can kind of follow the chart and do all these things. Okay, so the next thing that we were talking about doing, and we already have our existing ground, right? We got that 10 file. Now, you can see there's a couple directions I could go. Remember, I just said I could do profiles first, or I could do cross-sections. So you kind of follow that flow chart, and you can see those are the kind of the two choices I could go with. I'm going to go with profile first. And here you can name this run if you like. And so let's generate the existing profile for the main line. And so that is existing Illinois 54. I open this up, and then I get this dialog. Now, if all I was doing is profile, I probably could have avoided Project Manager, and I can go straight to this dialog. Some of the dialogs are available this way. And it's in there somewhere, right? Yeah, we're going to use Project Manager anyway. But if you look around, you could have found it there as well. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Here's what's happening. You've got the existing alignment, and you've got the 10 file. So this dialog, you're going to give it all the information it needs to take the alignment and to generate a profile from the 10. So it's going to ask you the name, and so you could call it something logical like existing Illinois 54. There, it already has my GPK. I remember the main line chain name was E001. It automatically changed my stationing to be the entire length of the chain. So I could create the profile at this point of the entire length. I guess it won't hurt anything to do that. Or I could have come out here and said, well, really, I'm not doing any work beyond here. maybe I go with 853. Oops. And, you could, if you wanted, kind of do the same at the other end. I don't know if it really makes a difference. We could have just used the entire chain. Although from that 10 hole, you could see that we don't have a 10 for the entire chain. And so sometimes if you go outside of the 10, it allows that and it doesn't cause a problem. And other times it does. So generally speaking, you're probably best off to try to stay, if you're going to be reading from that 10 file, you're probably better off to try to keep your range within that area. Then it gives you a couple methods. Do you want, how often do you want me to pull an elevation off that 10 model? And I could say intersect. And what that's saying is anytime you get to the intersection, like a triangle leg, it's going to pull the elevation at that location. Or I could give a distance. I don't know that really makes a difference. I haven't seen a big difference. I usually use intersection or 5 or 10 feet or something like that. And then I'm going to tell it what 10 file I want to use. There's my 10. And I'm ready to go. I hit apply. I say okay. And I say yes. And I say yes. And it's done. You can't see it. It's in the GPK file. If you want to make sure that it worked, of course, you can always go to coordinate geometry. That's like your window into the GPK file. So I'm going to go to Navigator, Profile, and there it is. And I could hit the Describe button. And so there's a description of the profile. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and do the side road. Okay, so we'll name it. It's County Highway 1, so I'm going to go CH1. Call it whatever you want, something logical. I know the chain name was 17. Go with that. Again, I probably want to stick within the survey, right? So remember we referenced that. So I could come over here to that DTM and just turn it on, and I can see that I've got plenty of survey. So I don't know. We'll just pick like here and here, something a little bit beyond my limits. Okay, so let's zoom in like 8 maybe to 12, I guess. And we already selected the 10 file, so we're still reading against that same 10. We hit apply. Same deal. Yes and yes. Go to coordinate geometry, make sure it worked. There it is. We can describe it. Okay, so now we have existing profiles. And we probably want to go ahead and visualize it because we know that from a design standpoint, we're going to need it. We're also going to need it in our plan and profile sheets. So let's go ahead and visualize it. So we put the profile in its own file. So project-wise, profile. Okay, I'm going to kill this dialog. And let's see. Okay, the first thing I need to do to visualize a profile is to place what they call a profile cell. And so I'm going to go to my Geopak plan preparation tools. I'm going to drop down to draw profiles. And I can put out what they call an anchor. It's a profile cell. A couple ways I could do that. Right here is one way. I can use active chain control. Various ways I could get the profile cell out there. Being we're here, we'll go ahead and just use this. That's my mainline chain. That's fine. Click this button. Okay, there's my active chain. And then I click this top button right here. It's going to bring up a dialog. So it wants a little bit of information. It says, okay, this chain is very long. Do you want the whole thing or do you just want part of it? And so we just want part of it. So we'll start at this 854. That's good. You do need to know approximately what elevation that your profile's at, because this elevation needs to be well below it. So I think 560 worked out okay. You know, when I went into coordinate geometry and I described it, it told me what the elevation was. So I could have looked at that number and subtracted, I don't remember what the magic number, like 30 or something like that. And so you end up with 560. And then I need to decide what scale my profile is going to be at. Because just like on cross sections where we exaggerate the y-axis by 2, on profiles we exaggerate more than we do with cross sections. So you can see probably the most common one is like this 20 and 5. So we know we're going to end up with a 20 scale plan sheet. So horizontal has to say 20. Vertical scale is either going to be 5 or 10 or 2. 2, 5, or 10. 5 is by far the most common. So you almost always go with 5. You might have a situation like in an urban area that's extremely flat and you're trying to show more relief. And so in that case, you might choose a 2. So then it's exaggerated 10 times instead of 4 times. But we'll go with the 5. So I'm going to place that in the design file. It's kind of hard to see, but the profile is going to be within that area. And so it's that profile cell that's going to give that profile some intelligence to do some things for it, like automatically put it in a plan and profile sheet for us, or move my cursor around and tell me what the elevation is, things like that. Okay, so I've got the profile cell. So next I hit the COGO tab right here. I come over, I select the name of my profile, and I drop down and I need to tell it the symbology of the existing profile. And so I may have used this recently and I may have what I'm looking for already, which I don't. Well, oh, actually it's right there. 20 and 5 existing. So just for, I guess, training purposes, because just in case you don't have that readily available, I'll tell you what you need to do. This needs to be set to by feature, and then you come over to this paintbrush, you click that, and it brings up like this little mini version of the DNC manager. And so you need to scroll to the top and select plan topo notation, just like we did with the alignments. And then scroll down to profiles, ground profile, existing profile, and the scale, 20 and 5 existing. And then, the central office has this set up for IDOT, because everything that we do is on a certain level and color and all that good stuff. So it's set up to work, with the 20 and 5 existing. So I can click down here, and it's going to tell me, it's going to give me a strip grade increment. It's going to give me an elevation across the bottom of my profile at some kind of increment. So right now it's set to 20. I guess we can leave it. You can go back at any point in time and change that even after you've plotted it. And then it says over here, do you want to plot the whole thing or part of it? We'll just go with what's really not the whole profile, but it's the whole profile cell. Once I get all this populated, I come up here on the right-hand side and click Add COGO Profile Settings. And there's my existing profile. And again, because there's the elevations, there's along the profile, there's my stationing. All this information down here is going to end up in my plan and profile sheet. It's going to be referenced into my plan profile sheet. In addition to being able to go to coordinate geometry and pull information from the existing profile. I could also go straight to this visualized profile and get information if I'm using active chain control, or if I'm using a profile labeler. So let me show you active chain control real quick. Where that Dilbert guy was located, just below active chain control. Here it is right here. Pull it out. Looks like that. What this allows me to do is I can work with one view, or I can actually work with all three. I can have separately my plan view, my profile, my cross section, and as I move my cursor around, it's actually going to move around. I can see the cursor in all three views. Even though that we're not drafting in 3D, we have 3 dimensions, right? And so it'll sync everything up. I feel like I'm saying a lot of words. Jeez, there's so many little things to learn. What do you guys think so far?
Yeah, it's good. Since we have to record, so since we are recording, it's good.
Oh, good. Yeah, so you can go back and.
There's a lot of information there. Right.
Yeah, you'd be like, how could you possibly remember every little step? Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't use that part yet.
So really, for this class, I probably could have just stayed in my room, right? And probably made the record. What's probably going to be probably more valuable than sitting here listening to me ramble on about this stuff is, I'm guessing it's probably, the video is probably going to have more value in some ways, because you're going to get the information when you need it, I think. Although this is good too, I suppose.
It's good to get introduced to it like this, and then we know what we're looking for in the video.
Oh, okay. Get the overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you have to set up this active chain control. See the windows here? These need to be sunk up with your window. There's your microstation windows. In microstation, you have up to 8 windows to look at the same design plane, right? Well, you got those same 8 over here. So I'm in window 1, and I want to work with my profile. So I need to come to window 1 over here, right-click, and tell it, go find my profile. Now, if I have multiple profiles out there, I can use this profile cell control, and it'll bounce me around from profile to profile. And so now it's in sync right now. It's all sunk up with this. So now I can use this button here, this curvilinear coordinates, and there's a lot of value in this. Being able to, and you're going to see that more, or actually let me go ahead and reference in the plan view. You're going to see where it's all going to start coming together, you know, and it's nice that it syncs up with one another. Active chain control made life so much easier. We've had it now for quite a while, but for many, many years we didn't have it, and you'd want to draft something, and you had to go find it. You go to plan view, measure the offset, write that down, go to the cross section, and then copy over that distance. Where now you don't really have to do that. We're going to automate cross sections to a certain extent, and then even when you draft on the cross sections to make little tweaks, you don't usually have to write anything down. You don't have to go measure anything. You go over to the plan view using active chain control, snap to it, toggle whatever that distance is, go back to the cross section, hit apply, and it draws to that same point in one of the 3 views. And so I like active chain control a lot. Okay. I mentioned the profile labeler. I haven't really used this a ton. It's found a lot of need, but just like plan view labeler, you got profile labeling. You can do this, and just like active chain control, because you saw I identified that cell, now I'm going to be able to go in, let's see, I'm not sure if this needs to be set. Yeah, I should be able to go in now here. What am I missing? See, I got this. There it is. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't seeing anything, right? You guys didn't see these two buttons. So anyway, I can, if I data point somewhere, you can see this. It knows the station down there, and I can build a label. I hit delimiter. I can come back and I can say I also want elevation. Then I could place that information. And of course, you can rotate it. I can set up my text. I can go to styles if I wanted to that way, and it'll automatically set that up for me. That sort of thing. Haven't had a ton of need for that. I definitely use Plan View Labeler a ton more, but in case you ever want to not just use MicroStation dumb text to place on a profile, you're actually pulling some piece of information, and you want to use like the intelligence of it to pull that out and to label it. That's what this is good for. Okay, so that was my mainline profile. Then I'm going to go off to the side anywhere. It doesn't matter where I put this cell. It'll go find it and use the intelligence of it where it's at. So at this point, it's not really using the state plane coordinate system. Instead, it's using the location of the profile cell to get its intelligence. It's it's spatial information. Okay. So let's go back and let's visualize County Highway 1 while we're here. First, we have to place the profile cell. We're going to do the same exact thing we just did for the main line. I think what was that station we used? About 750 maybe? Hang on, I probably want to get further away. Okay, so same deal. As far as this text here, I think that profile cell uses whatever your active text settings are. So sometimes that might come in big or something, and you just change your active settings. I think here it used that when I set style on that profile labeler. I think it may have grabbed that. It really doesn't matter. This doesn't show up anywhere. It's just kind of information to you to let you know that this profile cell is based on that chain, and it's exaggerated that much, and there's no gap. It uses a baseline of 560. So again, with the curvilinear coordinates, I can do the same thing. Move around. It knows my station and elevation. If for whatever reason I wanted to draw to a particular station and elevation, I can use it for that. I can come over here and say 850. Oop. Oh, is that too far? Let's see. 8 plus 0. And then some elevation I could lock in, and if I hit apply, it's going to have the intelligence to be able to, it drew to the station and elevation that I gave it. So once we bring all these in, and maybe I'll go ahead and do that now, I'll show you that what you need to know, it takes people a while, especially if nobody ever told you this, it takes people a while to figure out this curvilinear coordinates, because you have plan view, profile, cross-section, but you only use 2 of the 3 depending on where you're at. And you can kind of figure it out yourself because it makes sense, because if you think about it, like a profile doesn't have an offset, right? A profile has a station and elevation. Now how about a plan view? Like which one of those 3 would a plan view have? Yeah, station offset. And then on a cross section, it already knows what station it's at, so then elevation and offset. So you need to know that. Okay. So just so you can see what I'm talking about when I'm saying we're going to sync up here, I'm going to open up a second view. I'm going to go to the window pull down, hit tile to kind of neatly put these out there for me. And then I'm just going to make sure I have referenced in, the design file and the topo. I think I'll get rid of those for now. And so I just sync it up. That's window 1. Make that the plan view. Here's window 2. Make that the profile. And then once we get to cross sections. And then as I'm working and designing, I'm moving around in it. I'm saying, okay, I'm over here on the profile. Where would that be in the plan view? So I can see what's happening there. And a lot of times I like to sync these up. So when I go left to right, I would rather that intersection go like left and right sometimes. And same with, so here's something, this is kind of important because you could really mess things up if you understand this wrong, I guess. One thing that we can do is you need to know that there's a difference between rotating a view and rotating the elements on a design plan. And so the difference, of course, is I think you guys might already know this, but I'm not sure. So we have the Illinois State Plan, that system. That's our design plan. We're drafting on this coordinate system. So one thing that you can do that you would want to do here is I can take the whole design plan and I can rotate it. Some people, a very common problem, they have this and then they go in and instead of rotating the design plan, they would select everything and they would come up here to rotate wherever that's located. And they'd select everything and they would rotate it. Well, now you just took everything that's drawn corrected on the state plan coordinate system and you moved it somewhere else. So just so you know that. Okay, here's how you go about rotating the whole design plan. You got two choices. You could either come up to the can window and type in rotate view RV equals 90, for instance, return, and then data point one time. And so it rotated at 90 degrees. The other option would be to use this rotate tool right here within the window. Use this 2 points method, and then data point, I zoom in, and so now you can see that now it's kind of easier for me to work that way. Everything's kind of going the same way, left to right. Of course, now you have to know that north is no longer up. The whole design plane's rotated, and north is now east. Totally up to you guys if you like doing it that way. I kind of go back and forth. Once you're finished, you normally want to finish what you're doing and put north back up. And so in order to do that, you come over here to this rotate view, say unrotated, and it, no matter what your rotation was, it makes north again. Okay, so that's existing profiles. I might go ahead and do a save settings while we're here. Next, let's cut some cross sections. Are you guys okay? Need any breaks or anything, or 5 minutes? You good, or
Take a break.
take a quick one? All right. I'll go ahead and pause this. You guys just have to remind me to start it back up. Okay, heck, you come do this. I don't know why. I know I'm going to screw that thing up.